WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have from the Elixir Distillers, the brand called the Single Malts of Scotland Reserve Casks. Now the Single Malts of Scotland are single cask strength editions. The Reserve Casks are a small batch between 4 and 5 barrels. It used to be 4 and 6, but hey, something happened, 4 and 7 now. And they're all distilled at 48%. What do we have? We have a Blair Athol from 2009, distilled 2021, bottled. This is, all these are parcel number 5. So there are different parcels. We have parcel number 1, which was a Glen Elgin and Orkney Coile. We have parcel number 2, which was a Kleinlich and a Coile. Maybe there was a third, I didn't find it. There was a parcel number 3, Ben Ries on Glen Elgin again. Maybe there was a third, didn't find it. Parcel number 4 was an Orkney, an Altmore, a Linkwood, and a Speyside, Secret Speyside. And parcel number 5 is here the Blair Athol, €59.90. The Teaninich, this was actually distilled in the years 2007 and 2009. So, and was bottled in 2021. This is €55. And we have over here something called Mannochmore. This was also distilled 2009 and then bottled 2021. So everything on the table here is 11 years old. So first of all, we just have a very, very sturdy but somewhat cheap or environmentally friendly looking cardboard box here, which I would say is okay. So to be very honest, the whole concept of the parcels was a little bit for me strange at the beginning. I was like, I know a parcel, what that is, a package and so on. So what they did is they said they're going to send out different parcels. We have parcel number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And we do that. And the interesting thing is they tell you how many different casks are involved, but they do not tell you which casks are involved. So if you're going to look at my bottles or my glasses in a moment, you might see that there's a very difference in the colors. So you're basically buying blind. You do know the distillery, you do know the age, you do know the angel share. By Blair Athol it was 33.7%. By Teaninich was 23.2%. And over here by our Mannochmore was 23.5%. So both of these had about 2% per year. This had 3% per year. It sounds like not much, 1% more a year, but it accumulates over years. So 3% makes you have 10% less whiskey after 10 years, 11 years, and that is a lot, to be honest. All right, so let's take a look at these 3 whiskeys real briefly. You see on the left-hand side, you see definitely a little bit more of a color there. You see this is a lot brighter. And you see that the 2 of these actually more look like a little bit of a white wine than anything else here. All right, so you only know that after you buy the bottle and you don't know what that is beforehand. So we have different whiskey-based numbers, of course. The Blair Athol is 180007. We have here the Teaninich is 180069. And we have here the Mannochmore is 180068. So 5, 5, and 7 casks together. So all of these were actually selected and also married by Mr. Oliver Chilton. He is the master blender for Elixir's Distillers. Elixir's Distillers, you never heard of them? Have you heard of Port Aske? Those peated whiskeys we can get that are up to 40 years old. Have you ever heard of the Elements of Islay? Elixir, have you heard of, what else do they have here? Oh, they're trying to build a distillery on the island as well. They have preliminary planning permission, I think. This is now June, July 2021. And they have had a couple of problems with some of the neighbors going, no, too extreme, too modern, to this, to that, whatever, and they're still working on that. All right, so this is always 48%. To be very honest, I've done all of these individually in my German video, so I like both of these, and I dislike this one. So I'm going to start with this one, go to this one, and go to that one at the end, and see why I dislike it. So we have here our Teaninich. Teaninich is a very interesting distillery because, and I'm going to use my wonderful book that tells me everything that I ever wanted to know and more about single malt distilleries in Scotland, because it says here, and I'm going to read this. It says here the distillery is equipped with a hammer mill and a mash filter instead of a traditional mill and a mash tun. So you know what, you go in there and the first thing you see is the hammer mill, and the next thing you see is they put the powder as well as the chunks as well as the hull of the grain into the mash tun. They put 3 different washes in there and get rid of all that sugar. They don't have that. So they do have a mill and they grind everything up into a powder. Not 60%, 20/20, or whatever. It's actually all powder is what they use, which is very, very interesting. And this, of course, facilitates handling for grains, for example, rye. You can do that much better. And also they use this for the Johnny Walker Blender's Batch Espresso Roast, which used here, where was it here? Chocolate malt, which was also interesting. So they're doing a lot of more experimentation at Teaninich. Teaninich, sorry, is here, is the 3rd largest Diageo distillery in Scotland for malt. Over 10 million liters of production, so it's way up there. And it's very interesting. It says the mashing technique is what sets Teaninich apart from all the other Scotch distilleries, except for Inchdarin. And the malted barley is ground into fine flour without husks in a as-among hammer mill. This is the basis for a higher spirit yield, but also entails that one can use grain varietals that wouldn't mill as well in a traditional Portis mill with rollers. Usually have rollers and they roll that together and they make it exactly what we need for the single malt Scotch industry. And there's a hammer and they hammer it up into actually flour. Higher yield is what we're going for in the whiskey distillery, not flavor, unfortunately. Yeah, so we've changed to our different types, varietals of grain, in this case barley. Why? Because you get more liters alcohol per 100 per kilo. That's all they're looking at, alcohol yield. And if you grind it up, it's even more yield, and that's exactly what they want. All right, so very, very good. Once the conversion, so the grist is mixed with water in a conversion vessel. That's not called a mash tun, it's called a conversion vessel. Almost the same. I'm sure they put water in there and so on, but that's it. So you don't have the bottom semi-lauter where you have to let it out and you have little rests actually there, and so on. All right, so once the conversion from starch to sugar has taken place, the mash passes through a Meora 2000 mash filter, which consists of a number of mash or mesh bags. And the filter compresses the bags and the wort is collected for the next step, which is fermentation. So this is used in other industries as well. This is very unique for a whiskey, but it's not unique for other places. Where you have solids and you have water and you press it together and then you take out all the liquid and what's left is a solid which you can put someplace else and get rid of fairly easily. There are some downsides, of course. Using a mash filter, it's more expensive, it requires more cleaning, and it's less flexible when it comes to the size of the mash. So you can't go over or under. You have to keep on using the same because the mash filter is set up that way. So that's the very, very important and the interesting thing about here are Teaninich. You don't see it very often. There is a Flora and Fauna. All 3 of these are from Diageo, by the way. It's very, very light. It's fruity. It's a little nutty. I like it a lot. I can highly recommend this bottle to anyone who's looking at this and would like to have something that is unusual and good. So I'm just going over here to my website. There is one website in Germany who actually has this and with real tasting notes. They say it reminds them a little bit of like a graham cracker, fresh grass, and what I never say, which is very, very true, pears. All right, so going over to Mannochmore. Mannochmore is a distillery actually made, and I'm going to talk for another 3 minutes here, using as well the information from this book. I don't have the opportunity to talk about these distilleries that often, so I'd like to do that now and make sure I get my facts and figures right. So this was actually made by DCI. Did I say DCI correctly, or is it DCI? Exactly. And that is basically the predecessor of Diageo. So Diageo happened because DCI was taken over by Guinness, and Guinness was merged together with some, I always want to say, with another company, and they created Diageo then. And so what happened was we do know there's always cycles. There's cycles in the economy. It goes up, it's boom, and it busts. And the same thing happens in the whiskey industry. So in the 60s and 70s, there was a boom. And then in the late 80s, up until the 90s, there was a bust. And then since 2000, we have a boom, and which means there's going to be a bust. And this distillery was actually planned and made at almost at the zenith of that boom time in the 70s. So this was actually then in 1971, it was commissioned, and it was built because they just needed more capacity. Now, it's very, very interesting that in the year 1982, DCI actually owned 46 of the 119 malt distilleries and 5 of the 12 grain distilleries, which means they were bigger, they had a bigger market share than Diageo does today, which I thought was very, very interesting. So 1985, the distillery was mothballed. 1989, production begins again. And 1992, they actually put out the so-called Flora and Fauna for the first time here. All right, so you don't get very often Mannochmores at all. And so if you do see one, take a look and see if you want to buy it or not. This personally is sweet. The very first thing I get is a lot of sweetness in the nose. There's a little bit of marzipan. We all like marzipan, don't we? And there's a little bit of almonds. Almond is marzipan with sugar. There's a little bit of honey. Very, very sweet. Much sweeter than I expected. Much sweeter than I thought that would be. The Blair Athol, on the other hand, this has fruitier notes. One second. So I just want to make sure I get this right. Blair Athol. I thought there was a lot sherry going on in here. A lot more sherry than I actually expected, to be honest. It is sweet. It is vanilla. There's a little bit of chocolate in here. And that's the spice from the probably American wood in this as well. Maybe a little bit of like oatmeal. Okay. Very, very good. So the color is darker, and I really have my problems believing that this is just because of the oak of the American bourbon. I do think there's a little bit of, I got a touch of sulfur, so I think maybe one of the casks had some sherry in it. Personal opinion. All right, very, very good. So I'm going to try these. All 3 of these are a tad hot. To be honest, I love the fact that they're 48%, non-chilled filtered, and no color added. Yay! Elixir Distillers, thank you very much. Well done. Bravo, bravo, bravo. But to be very honest, all of these actually improve with a tiny bit of water. I'm going to try it first without and then move on to with. Yeah. A little bit of heat, and it dissipates and it goes back. This is a grassy type of floral type of note with some sweetness of the vanilla. This is a summer whiskey. You just sit outside, you drink it, you don't think about it. Wonderful. Sometimes I talk about the volume. Sometimes some whiskeys are like 10, would be the loudest. They're distorted, they're 11, maybe they're 8 or 9. This is like, shh, be quiet. This is like a 3. Very well done. I like it. 55 euros, 40 some euros, 42, 44 would have been like, oh, that's a good price for what the product they're giving us. But hey, we do know about those markets, and now we're still going up and up and up, and the prices are still going up and up and up. So it's not a bad price, it's a good price. I'm going to actually give this whiskey more of like a C++, B minus minus. I like this. I like this a lot, to be honest. Much more than I thought I was going to do. Very, very nice. Very, very holistic. A very, very good example of a bourbon matured 11-year-old whiskey from a distillery you don't often get. And the grassiness of this is actually an advantage and not a disadvantage. Going over to Mannochmore. it's much sweeter. There's much more of that marzipan, that almonds, and that sugar in there. It's amazing how much sweetness is actually in this whiskey. Mhm. It's almost as if someone put some sweetener or some confectionery sugar in here. Okay, it's got a nice bourbon cask vanilla wood spice finish at the end. Very, very nice, I must admit. Um, this is actually something I can recommend as well. Honey, a little bit of that almonds. Think almonds that have not been treated, maybe bleached almonds. I don't know if they're bleached or not, but not the brown. The skin is off, and there's no salt. There's nothing else. There's not caramelized. It's just that plain almond moment, and that's what I'm getting here. But there's a lot of confectionery sugar on top of it. Nice. So, who do we have to thank for this? We have the Oliver, a Chilton. Well done on both of these. Over here we have the Blair Athol. Totally different beast. I don't think it's just the distillery character that throws me for a loop. I think something's different with those casks. Like I said, the color is different. There's a vanilla and there's a red berry moment in here. I really do get the red berry, and that's something that I like, but I'm not, in this case, partial to it. So, in my case. Cheers. There's something like an apricot in here, but it's much, it's not ripe yet. There's like a peach, an unripe peach, more of a peach than an apricot. There's fruitiness in here. There is sweetness in here. But there's a tiny, I feel a little bit of a sulfur moment, but just me. Almost below the threshold, but not exactly. Yes, I'm sure there are people that would like this maybe even the most, but this is the one I like the least. So if I were to rank them, the Teaninich is my number 1, the Mannochmore is my number 2, and the Blair Athol is my number 3. Blair Athol cost the most, had the most angel share, 33%. This is 60 euros. Both of these had 23% angel share. They're both at 55 euros, basically. In Germany and in many of the shops in Europe that I found, that was in Belgium and Netherlands and UK, these bottles are still available. If you think about maybe 5 casks, each casks, if they're bourbon casks, 200 bottles per each. That's a low number, by the way, after 11 years. You're getting maybe about 1,000 bottles each, and they're throwing out these parcels maybe about every 6 months. Yeah. This is one of the things that I'm not really sure about yet. If I can highly recommend the single malts of Scotland reserve casks. It's something where you kind of should try before you buy, because if I had bought the Blair Athol, I would have been disappointed. But if I had bought these two, I would have been, hey, pleasantly surprised. And I would not have known what they tasted like without my recommendation, Elixirs, Distillers, is have something on your website that actually gives at least some type of tasting notes. Tell me what type of casks are really involved in this. This is for the passionate, it's beginner is wrong. The passionate intermediate whiskey taster. He's gone through most of the standard ranges. Now he's going into the independent bottlings, and he found these bottles, and it's interestingly done. I have the feeling always of there's like a little stamp on here and so on, and oh, this like airmail, and this like old and so on, and this is not bad, and but there's not much information to go on, and so I think it'd be good to have a QR code on the box I'm talking about what's possible in the future, or even the bottle. And then we can go to the website immediately, and you go, oh, okay, good. Look at this. All right. Okay. These are the tasting notes. This is a little bit more of the berry. This is a little bit more of the grassy notes. This is a little bit more of the marzipan with the almond. And I'm sure everyone in America is gonna go marzipan. That's what I want. And by the way, if you do put a tiny little bit of water in the Mannochmore, it actually turns even more sweet, which it's even sweeter, which really blew my mind, to be honest. It explodes in sweetness. All right. I talked about confectionery sugar, powder sugar. That's even more. It's almost if I poured in a little bit of sweetener in there instead of instead of just water. Very, very interesting. I love doing this. I like doing the 3 different parcels here and talking about the different whiskeys from the same bottler, the same producer in this case, the same bottler. This is nice. Thank you very much. Instead of doing 3 individual videos, I did just one. So if you Googled and found me, this is of course where you found the single Malts of Scotland. Great name, by the way. They had an independent brand that called the Single Malts of Scotland Reserve Casks Parcel number 5, and then you have the 3 different ones that are here. All right, thank you very much for liking. Please like, please subscribe, please watch, continue watching, please tell others, and thank you very much for being here. If you have any questions, please just contact me at whiskyjason@gmail.com. There might be a link down below or where I have a Spreadshirt now shop where you can buy some merch with my new logo on it and so on. And thank you very much for being part of the show, and all the best to you in the future. Come back, watch again if you'd be so kind. Bye-bye.